These are the best football boots for wide feet. Adidas Copa Mundial. If you've never seen these football boots, you're probably not from Earth. They're one of the most popular boots ever made, and it hasn't changed for over 20 years. They're around 100 to 300 pounds or dollars. Bit expensive, I'm not gonna lie. Nike Tiempo Legend 9. From all the boots that Nike makes, which it seems like is one a week, this is actually the widest they have, so it will fit you. They're $100 or 170 pounds. Adidas Predator mutated 20 plus, long name. So I know what you're thinking, a boot with a sock without laces is not really made for wide feet. But Adidas has created a wider outsole system so you can wear it. They're $180 or 280 pounds. Puma Future Z 1.2. So we got something new here. They actually created a hybrid between a laceless boot with the sock and also laces. It has some extra space on the midfoot, so you won't be feeling that pressure you normally feel with other boots. They're around $200 or 250 pounds. I have spent countless hours, sweat and tears looking for the best shoes. And I found that the most important things to know before you buy are durability, how comfortable they are, how they feel with the ball, you know, the finesse, and if they look good or horrendous. So let's look into them and see if you should make your curated buy. Let's go. These boots are extremely durable. You've probably seen your football coach wearing them every season, wondering, mate, just buy some new ones. But he doesn't need to, because the leather is of the highest quality. So whatever the condition you play in, the outside is not really gonna break. This part also has very solid stitching with the sole plate. So the shoe won't start splitting and talking to you like it happens with other ones. This leather outside part is also created in a way that it molds to your foot very, very quickly. You don't have to spend weeks playing with them to get that nice feel. Finesse. Also, these boots are quite heavy, which it might not be the best, but in terms of how comfortable they are, it makes them more stable, so your foot and ankle is not really gonna be moving inside the boot. So because this outside part is quite thick, you might think that the feel with the ball is not good, but somehow this kangaroo leather provides a great feel and actually grip on the ball. So when you take free kicks, they don't just go 1 million miles away. But you have to keep in mind the type of player you are. Because these boots are a bit heavier than others, it might not really fit your playing style, so keep that in mind. And style is about opinion. I would say they have a vintage old style. I personally like the bright colors, so it's not really my fit, but you decide that. Nike has actually created a hybrid on the outer part of the boot. So it's actually a mix of kangaroo high quality leather with synthetic materials. But also it's covered with a patented Nike system that protects the boots from all the conditions: sun, dryness, rain, everything. Even though they're not completely made of leather, it still molds quite nicely to your foot, so they're quite comfortable. And even though the boot is actually made with a one-piece enclosure, so you just put your foot in, which can make it a bit hard to put in, it actually offers more pressure and less slippage when you do a turn left or right. And because of this, you don't actually get as many blisters, especially at the beginning. So you heard the word again, kangaroo leather. If a boot has this, the feel with the ball is probably gonna be quite good. This one actually has points of friction, little things coming out that makes the grip with the ball extremely good. So be careful when you take a corner, because if you twist your ankle too much, it's just gonna go to the stands. In terms of style, I think they're pretty modern and I like the color. So they're valid. So let's be honest, this new style of sock boot, even though it gives you a great feel with the ball, it's just not the most durable. But because this is a sock boot for wide feet, there's actually not so much stretch on the materials when you put it on. Some of these type of boots, they're so tight that you actually just stretching the material out every time you turn and they just break. So out of all of them, this is probably the most durable. So they have a very wide outsole. So your big foot is gonna fit correctly. But because they have no laces, you're never gonna get the tightness you get with other boots. So you might have some slippage within the boot when you change direction. So the great thing about these sock boots, and probably why they made them, is because the touch with the ball is immaculate. Leather is great, but it's a bit thick. Here is so thin, you literally feel the ball. Like the last boot, it also has rubber friction points. So when you hit the ball, you're really gonna get a good grip. In terms of how they look, they're quite strambolic, quite crazy. Not sure if they're my style, but if you like them, buy them. So the outer part of this boot is actually completely made of synthetic material. no leather. So they're just probably not gonna last as long as the old leather boots. But like I mentioned before, this boot is specifically made for wide feet. So you won't get as much tightness and the materials won't be forced to break. So this one is interesting. Because it's a hybrid between a sock boot and a boot with laces, you get the best of both worlds. Those laces on the top of the foot, they're gonna give you an extra tightness in the ankle, which are going to keep the boots more firm in your foot. And the sock design is gonna mold better to your foot, so they're gonna feel pretty good. Like the others, even though it's synthetic material, because it's thin, you're gonna get a pretty good touch with the ball. And it also has the friction points to get that curve. I really like the style of this boot, because even though it's like a sock, it's not one of those huge socks that go until your ankles. They're just so long, some of them. And now I heard all your questions you have before you buy the football boots. I put them together, found the answers, and here they are. Let's go. How do you actually know and check if you have wide feet? Well, if you think about it, the size of a shoe is always measured in length, and they don't really take into consideration the width, how wide your foot is. So if you've normally been buying boots and shoes that lengthwise fit you, but they're quite tight on you, it probably means you have a wide foot. And maybe act like you're gonna buy a shoe and ask the person in the shop to help you find the shoe. They've seen all the foots in the world, so they'll probably know if you have it, and they'll tell you. How do you actually select football boots to buy online? I know that because you might have wide feet, you're scared to buy online because obviously you can't really try the boots. So the first thing you have to find out is if the specific brand tends to make their shoes or boots bigger than the size of the foot or smaller. Some brands might sell a boot that is size 41, but they might even recommend you on that page to buy a little bit higher, perhaps 42. You can find this information in many forums as well. Another trick is also to check the return policy of the shop that you're buying in. It's really important that they let you open the box and try the shoe, perhaps at home rather than a field. And if it's too wide, you just put it back in again. So don't make them dirty or anything, and you can send them. Because there's some shops that even if you open the box, you cannot send them back anymore. So avoid those. Know what types of football boots for wide feet are there. Very simple. You have the new style with the sock. They're normally thin, with synthetic materials, and they wrap around your foot. Then you have the old style, which is without a sock and normally leather. And then the same low-cut style, that is a mix between leather and synthetic. And then normally you have 3 ranges of quality. The cheaper version, that normally doesn't have many of the features I've spoken about in the video. Then they started to create a mid-premium, where it's the best of both worlds. It's not so expensive, and it's pretty good. And then you have the pro ones, which tend to be quite expensive, but they're great. How do I maintain these wide feet football boots so they last longer? I know, because you have wide feet, probably older football boots have not really lasted too long because you're stretching the materials with your big foot. So a few tricks is to loosen up the laces, if they have, a little bit. Make sure they're still tight and that your foot doesn't move inside, but they're not super tight so the materials aren't stretched too much. A big one is to dry them. If you play football in the rain, and you come back and just throw the boots in your room, they're going to probably break. This is because the material, especially if it's leather, if you let it dry slowly, it's going to start to crack up the material and they will start breaking. So whenever you finish, always dry them with a towel, not a hairdryer. So now you know what football boots for wide feet to buy. Let's go!